Hi everyone, my name's Olivia. I'm 17 years old. I live in Staten Island, New York, and I just want to tell you all why I'm taking action today for girls' leadership and representation. So last year, I had the opportunity to participate on a global panel of girls who were tasked with gathering demands from girls around the world to create a global girls' Bill of Rights. Now, we read through thousands of submissions and narrowed down the list to 10 rights that every girl should have. Today, we're talking about a right that feels more timely than ever, and that is involvement in decision making and pursuit of leadership positions without fear of discrimination, harassment, or persecution. Girls must be allowed to decide what our future holds and be able to lead just as much as boys in school, at home, or just in our community. Any decision that affects us should include us in a position of authority. We have the right for our voices to be listened to and respected. Now, this is really personal to me because I'm proud to call myself a respected leader, organizer, and activist in my community. But the world didn't always see me this way. Patriarchal expectations around leadership and gender roles have given us a very narrow view of what it means to be a leader. Now, I was never valued as an aggressive or more male presenting leader, either in the way I dressed or the way I looked or the way I spoke. And I was never seen as a true leader when I presented myself to be more feminine or compliant. I faced a kind of dual burden in the spaces I took up. Either way seemed to lead me to undue judgment or perceived bitchiness or just some sort of misogyny. What's worse is that, on top of this narrow view of what leadership looks like, we've been told that there are so few seats at the table. Women are portrayed as being competitive and catty, when in reality, our greatest strengths come from our unity. Through my chapter of She's the First at Staten Island Academy, I've seen firsthand what a community of girls can accomplish, from mentoring new chapters to organizing bake sales that include an entire high school, to even making our way to advocate at the United Nations. My success has always come when I was my authentic self. Every time, without fail, I found my people. Even when they didn't seem to be the majority, they were enough voices and support to ensure change and success for even more people, and girls in particular. Finding my voice was not a moment, but it was a journey towards accepting myself for the leader that I was, embracing my tenacious, my passionate, and forward nature. In the end, I found that these aspects of myself were what set me apart. They were my greatest asset in whatever I was a part of. The She's the First community gave me a space to find my voice and to use it, to uplift those around me in my own way. This issue extends beyond even my personal experience as a leader to the people who make decisions for us. I've been fortunate enough to have so many amazing female role models to look up to, but not every girl is so lucky. In fact, if you look at statistics from February 2019, only 24.3% of national parliamentarians were female. Every girl deserves to have her voice heard and her needs advocated for by someone who understands her experiences firsthand. Now, that's why I'm taking action today for girls' leadership and representation. Now, I am so excited to introduce Katie Riley, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships, and Kate Kiama, who is the Director of Programs at She's the First, and they're going to tell us more about why leadership and representation is so critical to girls. Take it away, you guys.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Hi, I am Katie Riley. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at She's the First, and I am joined by my fabulous colleague, Kate. Kate is joining us by voice, but Kate, can you hear us? Are you with us?
Yes, thank you, Kate. Thank you, Olivia. My name is Kate Kiama, as you've heard. I'm joining from Nairobi. Apologies, I am having a rainstorm and my power has gotten knocked off. But I'm really excited to still be able to participate in this conversation, and also just recognizing that there are instances where many girls who may not have power or electricity can be left out from conversation. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for still calling in, even with the Wi-Fi struggles you're having. So I want to kick us off. Today is day 4 of the week of action, and we are excited to talk about everything leadership and representation. This topic is one of the ones I was most excited about, and it's really important to me because it feels really personal. I am someone who grew up being told by adults that I had natural leadership tendencies or was a born leader, and told by my peers that I was bossy. And I'm sure a lot of girls and young women watching this can relate to, as Olivia said, not having what adults see as a good trait in you valued by your peers when you are somebody who is naturally drawn to leadership. My mom loves to tell this story of when I was in elementary school. At my very small elementary school, we had line leaders that would lead the class out to recess. And the line leaders were almost always boys because they had to carry the cooler full of water bottles out. And the just natural instinct was that boys are stronger, so boys have to be the line leaders because boys need to carry the coolers. And this really upset me as a little elementary school child. But I was really fortunate to have a female principal who, when I went to the office and said, I'm mad about this, I don't think it's fair that only boys can be line leaders, she saw that as an opportunity and a learning moment to teach me how to develop my own leadership skills and a little bit about how civics works. So she had me start a petition. And if I got enough signatures that said that girls should also be allowed to be line leaders in our elementary school, then we would change the rule. And 40 signatures later, we now have co-ed line leaders. It's a silly little story, but it really represents for me the first time I understood the power of my voice and the power of my ability to affect change. And I think it also helped that having a female principal, I had a role model. I had somebody who I could look up to and somebody who understood when I said, hey, I think this thing is unfair. I'm not sure I knew the word sexist yet in like third grade. She understood and she listened to me. So I'm really excited we're talking about this today. And Kate, I know you've had quite a few experiences with leadership yourself, even when you were growing up. Can you tell us about some of them?
Thank you, Katie. I definitely resonate a lot with your story. When I was 13 years old, I attended an all-girl Catholic boarding school, as is the norm this side of the Sahara. I grew up in an extremely sheltered family, and that was my real taste of real life, so to speak. So when I came across the rampant practice of monolization, which comes from the Greek word mono, meaning one, which is also a bullying practice of older students who bully younger students, I was faced with an internal dilemma, either to speak up, even if it wasn't the most popular decision, or to be silent, to keep the status quo, especially if it's not happening to me. Many years later, when I was taking the bar exam, I was faced with a different kind of a dilemma. I ran for the position of female class president and contested in a class of majority of female lawyers. As easy as that victory was, that experience has always had me reflect on the plethora of reasons most young women shy away from running for any representative or leadership role, even when they know that they can do it, even when they know that they're capable, and that they too deserve to have a seat on all tables.
So true. And now, obviously, you work extensively with and for girls. So I'm sure you see these issues of representation and leadership arise in your work now. Can you tell us about some of the ways that you see girls left behind, even within this space of girls' empowerment?
I think today, with my power just going off, is definitely one of the very subtle reminders that there are very many girls who are left behind, who may not be able to plug into a week of action because they might not have regular access to internet or regular access to electricity, which are some things that we possibly might not necessarily be thinking about. Perception, especially of parents and their attitudes towards education, might mean that very many girls, especially even without COVID, are left behind, especially when you think of attrition rates of girls and boys in schools, in either primary or secondary, and obviously in university. We definitely know that ability is one of the biggest issues that may allow, or maybe one of the biggest proponents of having girls excluded. Language barrier is also one of them, literacy levels, things around race and gender-based violence, especially when you think about communities or cultures that practice female genital mutilation or early child marriage, completely robs girls the opportunity for them to reach their self epitome or to actually self-actualize. And those are some things that it's important for us, even if we might not necessarily see them firsthand, to always recognize that there are very many girls who are being left behind in different spaces. And it's just a humbling reminder, just to make sure that our spaces are more inclusive, to bring others along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we see that play out in the actual statistics too. Like we often lump girls together as one category. So we talk about girls' rights and girls' inclusion at large as if girls are a monolith, but we know already that only 39% of rural girls are able to attend secondary school, which is far fewer than rural boys at 45%, urban girls at 59%, and urban boys at 60%. So paying attention to these marginalized groups within the larger group really is the basis of intersectionality, and why that representation and why representation and leadership matter so much. If you have all groups represented in leadership positions, it's much more likely that solutions are actually going to address the needs of everyone, not just the few.
Agreed. Last year, as you may all know, 1,000 girls from over 30 countries speaking 5 different languages came together to create the Global Girl Bill of Rights in collaboration with Maya, Akili Dada, and She's the First. We declared that involvement in decision-making and pursuit of leadership positions without fear of discrimination, harassment, or persecution is a right that all girls have. Still, unfortunately, we see our voices underrepresented, we see our voices silent, and often disrespected. At Choose the First, we believe in changing this narrative and ensuring girls are educated, respected, and heard. Through our girl-centered programming, we believe in putting girls truly at the center and helping our partners also program in this way as a sure way of bringing both girls and young women along in making lasting solutions to the world's most pressing issues.
That Girls Bill of Rights campaign, if you haven't seen it, go to girlsbillofrights.org. It was a really incredible process to watch, to see girls from all around the world really using their voice, declaring, this is what I demand the world recognizes for me. So, and Olivia was one of the students who helped us narrow down that list and make the final bill with the final 10 rights. So go to girlsbillofrights.org and check it out if you haven't. But don't leave the live stream, do that later. So Kate, I want to get really practical, and I know we're going to bring in some guests who can tell us more about taking action for girls' leadership in just a few minutes, but how can those of us who are listening right now help to advocate for more representation for girls and women?
Leadership and representation is definitely more than just a title. It's more than the recognition. It's more than the authority. It's actually the ability to make meaningful change in the lives of others. So I'd like to offer 5 quick tips in which you can be able to actually create more meaningful change for underrepresented girls in this conversation. The first one is commit to be a mentor to both younger and older peers. You don't have to wait to feel that you have achieved all of your goals to start mentoring. Mentoring is a process, and through mentoring, you get to learn. So you can definitely, I keep saying, I learned so much, especially from the campus students, just by them sharing the exciting opportunities they're working on. So please mentor. This is the best way to bring others along. The second tip I have is let's be open to have more candid conversations about leadership and inclusion of girls and women, which is definitely what we're having right now. And I hope that we can be able to pass on this conversation. We can be able to have these conversations with our friends who are not able to join the Week of Action, and just make sure we try and demystify the stereotypes around leadership, especially for young women. The third tip is definitely identify what your own individual leadership goals are and create an action plan to them. So visualize them, put them in a plan, and start, make sure you start planning towards actualizing them. The fourth offer I have is consider taking up a leadership role, either at your campus chapter or starting one if it doesn't exist in your uni, or being more active in your clubs at either your school or your uni. I think that's usually the easiest way. And even if you're not ready at this time to take up a leadership role, just hold your leadership accountable. That's also part of leadership. And finally, identify the leadership gaps in your own campus, and propose opportunities for more inclusive student representation. As I mentioned, the challenges that we see, especially around language, around race, around ethnicity, about ability, if you see something that doesn't sit right with you, please speak up, because that's also part of leadership and representation, just to make sure we're bringing more people along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that final tip, especially for this audience, because there are so many places where there are opportunities for representation for more voices, especially at that campus administration level. Tammy Tibbetts, our co-founder, spoke, I think, yesterday about her experience joining the board of trustees at the College of New Jersey, which is her alma mater, and really using that position to be an advocate for student voices and to listen to what students are caring about at TCNJ and make sure that their voices are represented. But not every board of trustees has a Tammy Tibbetts on it, but every governance board for a university or for a high school could have a position for a student if a student asks for it. So that's something I really would encourage this particular audience to think about is, beyond kind of the existing pathways for leadership on campus and the existing roles, if you see a position or a group that is really making a lot of decisions that affect you directly, make sure your voice is being heard within that group, within that space, because you are, as a student, the school is there for you. You are the number one customer, you are the number one constituent they need to care about, and your voice should be one of the loudest in the room. We're going to bring in a guest in a minute, but Kate, I wanted to ask you just a quick follow-up question on one of your tips. We talk so much about mentorship here at She's the First, and we know that it is so vital, not just to building girls' leadership, but to a number of other health and safety and development and education initiatives that She's the First works on. And you mentioned having a mentor who's older than you or younger than you and kind of mentoring up or having a mentor yourself. Can you give us, because secret tip for everyone watching, Kate is like a super mentor. Can you give us any tips on how you have found mentors, or if somebody isn't quite sure how to find a mentor, how they can approach that process?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Katie. So mentorship is it's a very personal kind of relationship. I do think you can find mentors through various platforms. You can find a mentor through books as well. You don't necessarily have to have like FaceTime with a person. So if it's someone who you really, really admire and appreciate, you can try reading up on them. The second piece I would like to give is, if you do know the person, reach out to them. In my own experience, I've noticed that when you reach out to someone and say, "Hey, Katie, do you mind being my mentor?" it sometimes makes you feel a bit intimidating. And so for me, what I'll try and do, and I often suggest this to my mentees, is try scheduling an appointment with this person and saying, there are these 5 things I want to pick your mind on. And usually, when you have organized yourself, you have reached out to this person and sent them an agenda and say, I'd like to spend 45 minutes discussing A, B, C, D. Usually that conversation will naturally often manifest in its way. A few weeks later, this person will reach out to you and ask you, "Hey, Katie, did that help you?" So you can try and find organic ways without dropping the big M word, because I do know sometimes that's a bit intimidating to people. But I keep saying, for the magic of mentorship to work, you have to be mentored and you have to mentor someone. So it's like a sponge. Think of it as an analogy, like a sponge. Even if you dip a sponge in water, at some point the water has to pass through. So don't be that person who's just willing to receive and refusing to pass through, because that's why I say, let's not also think that mentors have to be people who are older than you, because that's, especially in the work that we do, putting girls at the center means that we're truly recognizing that girls are experts, and we have to be open and willing to learn. And that's the same thing as mentorship. There are people who might be really good at a specific skill, and that's not necessarily determined by age, but you can actually be able to reach out to them for that form of mentorship. So I would say research on who the person is. If you think that the big M word will puzzle them, try reaching out in a way that makes them recognize I'm only asking for 45 minutes to discuss this. I do bet that if someone has invested their time and their energy, I will definitely check in with them and find out, was this helpful? And then naturally you just have like maybe 3 months, you're always touching point with people. The other thing is definitely keep your resources, read widely and vastly, especially in that specific skill set that you're willing to grow and know in. I hope that was helpful, Katie.
That is, I think that's some of the best advice that I think someone can give about mentoring is that you don't go to someone first and say, will you be my mentor? You build that relationship, you begin learning from each other, you begin to develop that personal rapport. And I think that's how it's worked out with anyone that I have called a mentor in my life. It's something that happened more naturally because we had shared interests and shared goals in life, and we're able to talk about those and kind of advise each other on them. And then at some point I was like, oh, you're really a mentor to me. Like, can I call you a mentor now? Yeah, you don't just email out of the blue and say, hey, stranger, be my mentor. It's not going to work. Well, thank you for this advice. I want to keep the conversation going and bring in our first guest today, Adrianne Wright, who should be joining the stream in a second.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. Adrianne's the founder of an organization called I Will Not Be Quiet. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. So hi, everybody. My name is Adrianne Wright, and I'm the founder and CEO of an organization named Rosie, and we're a boutique storytelling agency for nonprofits. But I'm also the co-founder of a women's activism group called I Will Not Be Quiet. And I'm super excited to chat with you all today. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Adrianne. Yes, please tell us a bit more about the fascinating story of how 14 women sitting in a living room resulted in the creation of I Will Not Be Quiet, and what your vision for success looks like.
Yeah, so I Will Not Be Quiet is a women's activism group that was founded in New York City almost 4 years ago. And it was founded after the 2016 election. And it felt like we were living in the worst storm of our lives. All of the hard-won victories that our ancestors had fought so hard for was just suddenly at risk, just like that. But all of this hatred and all of this ugliness was just spilling out into public platforms. And you may have always known that you had that uncle who didn't see eye to eye with you, or an old friend who you may have lost touch with years ago, but all of a sudden you could see them saying the most hateful language on platforms like Facebook. And it certainly didn't help that the leader of our country was joining in on this type of language. And I'll never forget when the Muslim ban was enforced. That was just so deeply personal to me, because my father came to the US from the Philippines on political asylum, and he actually led the country's largest student protest called the Battle of Mendiola. You can look it up on Wikipedia. But he led it against a very corrupt government. And I grew up listening to a lot of stories about this. And so this wasn't just a fact that I knew about my father. His activism spirit really deeply informed the way that I grew up, how I spoke for myself and for others, and really how I saw the world, not in the way that it was right there in front of me, but in the way that I wanted it to be. But despite all of this, and I just felt like I couldn't speak up. I didn't feel empowered to. I felt like I didn't know everything that there was to know about immigration reform and about policy to hold my own in a debate. And I was nervous that I was going to be taken down if I didn't. So I did the worst thing. I didn't speak up. I didn't do anything. And I'm saying this to you now because it was the most shameful experience of my life. And with everything that was going on, I was so worried that despite the fact that I knew that this was so wrong in my bones, why was it that I didn't feel like I could speak up? And despite everything that was so loud that was happening in the public sphere, what I worried about the most was just all the silence that was happening. People like me and people like you who knew how they felt so deeply in their bones, but didn't feel empowered to speak up or didn't feel like they were in a safe place to articulate how they really felt. So I did what a lot of people do in these moments of vulnerability is that I called someone that I love, and that is one of my best friends. And her name is Chelsea, and she's the co-founder of I Will Not Be Quiet. And it was the first time that I felt safe enough to talk to someone about what was happening, but really kind of peeling back the layers. Like, why was this happening? What was the ignorance that animated it? And how can we be our most powerful selves in the midst of political chaos? How can we be a light in the storm? And so we said, let's send an email out and see if some ladies want to get together and have a conversation. So soon enough, we had 14 women who didn't really know each other show up to my apartment. And we gathered around my small living room in Brooklyn to talk, to just say how we felt. And one thing that was clear was that we didn't feel the power to speak up because we didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't feel like we were knowledgeable enough to have a conversation about the issues that we believe in. So we decided to create this group called I Will Not Be Quiet, and we wanted to provide an alternative. We wanted to meet hatred with love and divisiveness with community and fear with facts. And so each month, and even more so since the outbreak in March, we bring women together into intimate talking circles to learn and discuss the issues with experts, but also with their peers in a safe space where we can really connect through our stories and discover our truths and investigate our hunches. And our core belief is that knowledge is power, and that the more that we know, the more that we can do and truly change the tune around us and lift us all up like a choir. But this model here, talking circles, is not new. It's been the start of every great movement of our time. But the way that we do it really matters. And there's no reason that we can't change the world and do it in community and have fun and be inspired and heal and laugh and dance and support each other. This is what gives us hope. So it's been a really, really incredible experience. What started off as 14 women has now grown to an over 5,000 women movement across the country. We've rallied, we've phone banked, we've done craftivism, we've partied and celebrated the joy of resistance together. And I think that this is a testament that we all have the power to be the change that we want to see, and that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. So it's been a really rewarding experience.
Wow. I would like to join in for craftivism, whenever that's happening next.
We would love to have you.
Yeah.
I really resonated, and I really appreciate you sharing that you weren't bold enough to speak up and now you are. Because I think often, especially if you're a young person tuning in, there's always this, when we look at role models such as you, Adrianne, we only see this part. And sometimes I think it's really empowering for young people to know that feel the fear, but do it anyway. You can start something. I think sometimes the fear really paralyzes us and we feel like I'm too small, I can't be able to do something. And I really appreciate that, just having the conversation, creating the safe space for people to be able to speak up, because I do think that's where a lot of magic happens. You feel like you have camaraderie, you feel like you have your own community, and you aren't going through this alone. So my question to you is, how, if I'm tuning in and I want to join this circle, how do I get plugged in? And is it only geographical location? And how can I, learn more about the things that are very passionate to us?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, in order to get involved with I Will Not Be Quiet, you literally just have to follow us on Instagram called I Will Not Be Quiet and join, and you'll get onto our listserv where you'll be able to know about all of the events that are happening. And this is not location specific; anybody can really join. But one thing that I do want to mention that the one thing that has been so clear during this crisis that we're in is that we are also interconnected. And in crisis is when we need each other the most. So, when I think about what our call to action is for this conversation is you don't have to wait for I Will Not Be Quiet to form your own community. You can certainly do this on your own. You can certainly form your own talking circle. So I Will Not Be Quiet is actually launching a toolkit this weekend that empowers anyone everywhere to start their own toolkit or their own I Will Not Be Quiet chapter. I just moved to Nashville 3 weeks ago from New York City and started my own chapter here in Nashville. We've got over 300 ladies who have joined, which has been amazing. So all of that information is in that toolkit. And so you can dive into that. Follow us on Instagram at I Will Not Be Quiet. But we're also giving an exclusive sneak peek to all of you through today's action guide that She's the First provided. So I'm super excited about that. We all have something that we do. We have a group text message maybe with your friends or like-minded family members about things that are happening in the world, or maybe you're part of a Facebook group. There's something so magical though about being face-to-face with someone. And let's admit, being in this environment since COVID has happened, we are in the most isolated states that we've been in a very, very long time. So having this kind of community really does sustain you in this movement. It is what has ever won elections. It is this engaged, enthusiastic transformation of regular people into super citizens that are actually spending their time every day, just like me and you are, talking to their community. And, making change does not require that you be this natural born leader. People think about change and they think of RBG, who's amazing, and MLK, and making these huge giant speeches in front of thousands and thousands of people. But what change really requires is doing what you're doing every single day. And that's to be in community and having everyday conversations with people and helping people see their power and helping the world see their power. So I hope that this will empower everyone that's watching here today to start your own talking circle and be the change that you want to see in the world.
Yes,
Thank you
absolutely.
very much,
And sorry, Kate, go ahead.
No, I'm really excited about the toolkit and just empowering us and just using your platform to share your power as well and helping us, equipping us with the tools to be able to start our own talking circles. I just wanted to remind our viewers that if you have questions, please post them, and we'll definitely be bringing Adrianne back to answer the question and answer session. Katie, over to you.
Yes. So, Adrianne, thank you for telling us all about talking circles. We're going to bring you back, as Kate said, in a few minutes. But for a moment, first, we're going to bring in our other guest, Stephanie Kaplan-Lewis, and hear about another way that we can take action today. Hey, Stephanie, welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Nice to see everyone.
Yeah, thank you for being here. For anyone who might not be familiar with her campus, which is the just powerhouse organization company, I don't even know what to call this. It is the #1 media site for women, which Stephanie co-founded, and her campus has been a very long time friend and partner of She's the First and super supportive of our Bake a Change initiative every fall. So not doing a lot of bake sales here in 2020, but I'm really excited to have you on the stream and have you telling us more about how her campus and She's the First can continue to work together this year.
Amazing. I'm so excited to be here. And I think we've partnered with She's the First really for the past 10 years because we launched right around the same time. And my co-founders and I had met Tammy when we were both first getting off the ground and have worked closely together ever since. And it's just been such an amazing partnership, and we're such huge fans of everything that you do.
Likewise. Well, I'll turn it over to Kate because I know she has some questions for you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us. Over the last few bizarre months, it has become very glaring that countries like New Zealand, Germany, Finland, and Taiwan, which are unsurprisingly led by women, are dealing much better with the current pandemic. Speak to us about why it's crucial to push the narrative beyond women speaking up, women showing up to vote, to women demanding to hold these decision-making spaces.
Absolutely. So as you just noted, now that we have months of data, it's so clear that the countries that were led by women did a better job navigating this pandemic. The countries bounced back quicker. They had fewer deaths, which is just unbelievably powerful data on top of so much data that already existed in the world about the value of having countries that are led by women. And I think in this country, especially, there was a lot of momentum earlier in this year, especially last year, when there was this record number of female presidential candidates for the first time. It was so exciting. There was kind of so much energy and excitement around the idea of having maybe a female Democratic candidate and just this incredibly diverse pool that we had in the running. And then, as we all know, candidate after candidate ended up dropping out of the race, and we still have an older white man as the Democratic presidential candidate. So while certainly progress has been made at home, there's still not enough progress being made. And I think this year, with the pandemic, with the huge movement for social change, especially around Black Lives Matter, it's become this really kind of overriding narrative that, okay, that's great to post on social media. That's great to kind of galvanize your networks and your friends to donate and to affect change. But what you really need to do is show up and vote and really use your voice to vote, which is when it counts. But what we said is, hey, what voting is using your voice to essentially pick who gets to be that person who is in power, who gets to be making those actual decisions. But why stop there? Why assume that all you can do is use your vote to choose the person who's going to make the decisions? Why not actually become the ones making the decisions yourself? And so what we're really pushing on women to do in a partnership that we're going to talk about in a minute or two is really say, hey, don't stop at feeling like your job is just to go out there and vote. Consider the possibility that people could be voting for you, that maybe you are someone who wants to run for office one day. It doesn't need to be right now, but start thinking about it, get it on your radar, because you have the power to be the one, not just voting, but actually in the driver's seat, in the decision-making seat. And that's where you can really wield more power than ever. And so I'm happy to jump in and talk a little bit more about that.
Do we still have Kate?
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm really excited to see that kind of shift, especially to make Stephanie, I just wanted, sorry, I lost you for a bit there, but I'm just curious to find out, especially when you're talking about making sure that recognizing that progress, yes, is being made, but trying to make sure more women are taking up that mantle. Do you mind speaking to us, especially about your new initiative, Running Start, and how students can get involved?
Definitely. So again, we looked at all of those things that I just mentioned to you, and we looked at the fact that college women, who are the audience that we speak to directly, often say that they can't see themselves running for office one day. It's not something that they feel like is the right fit for them or that they can see themselves doing. And for a lot of women, they've told us that they feel like it feels too kind of like self-important to say that like they might want to run for office one day, or they feel like they would just have no idea where to even start with tackling something of that scale. Or maybe they say, I'm not a political science major. I'm not even in my student government. It doesn't feel like it's something for me. And we really want to turn that on its head and make clear that running for office is something that everyone can aspire to, no matter your background, no matter your major, no matter your industry that you might be working in right now. And it's something that we really want to feel accessible to everyone. Because what we've learned is that a lack of confidence is one of the biggest barriers to women running for office. But what we also know, and what we've learned in partnership with our nonprofit partner, I'll speak about in a minute, Running Start, is that when women do run for office, they win at the same rate as men. So it's not that when women are running, they aren't winning. It's that they aren't running to begin with. But if you can get over that hurdle and put yourself in the race, put yourself out there, female candidates win just as often as men, which I thought was so striking. And it's been a statistic that has really shocked a lot of people we've told it to. So what we've done is teamed up with an amazing organization called Running Start. They are a nonpartisan nonprofit that helps to change the world one elected female leader at a time by helping to train young women to run for public office. And so we're working with Running Start to put on an event on Friday, October 30th for 100 college women. That's a 4-hour virtual interactive elect her training day where you'll be hearing from incredible female politicians from all across the country and also engaging in truly interactive, actionable, productive workshops with the Running Start team, all about how to lay the groundwork to one day run for office yourself. So we'll be talking about things like how to identify the issues you're most passionate about, how to leverage your networks to start thinking about how you would be able to use your networks to really make a go for it, and about how you can really kind of use your voice to affect change, and how you can develop your own what we call run for office elevator pitch. In the startup world, you hear a lot about elevator pitches, but if you're running for office, you need one too. And so we're going to be kind of workshopping those with people and really talking about how to craft those. So our application is open now for that event. You can head to hercampus.com/running-start to read a letter from myself and my co-founders about why this is so important to us and how to get involved. So we're pumped about that. And we'll be working with Running Start all year long on that, on a content hub on hercampus.com with content on all these same themes. And another thing we're doing that's open to everyone that isn't by application is that on October 29th, the night before our Elect for Training Day with Running Start, we're hosting a virtual viewing party of a new documentary that just came out called Surge, which is about the historic number of women who ran in the midterm elections to turn their districts from red to blue. And it follows 3 of those women. So we're really excited about that viewing party. It features some incredible women. And so you can learn more about that as well at hercampus.com/running-start. And we are just so excited to really kind of put our muscle and our energy behind this movement.
That's really incredible. And I got a sneak peek at Surge maybe a month ago, and I'm so excited to watch it. So I will definitely be tuning in. I believe that hercampus.com/electher link is in your action guide for today. So anybody who's watching, who is ready to sign up, ready to take action, click on that link. You've got it there.
hercampus.com/running-start.
I'm sorry. Yes. It is. I am certain it is correctly linked in the action guide. So that is available to anybody who is watching and who wants to take action. And I just think this is going to be a really incredible training. And I think building that confidence and starting small, you don't have to run for president first. You can run for an elected office in your student government or something on your community board or something small and build your way up.
Exactly.
That is fantastic. Well, I think we're beginning to get some questions in the chat. If you haven't dropped a question in, go ahead and do that now. We will bring Adrianne back and we'll see if we've got my colleague Kate back. But it looks like we do have our first question. If we want to put the question from Annika up on the screen. Do you have any advice for girls who want to get politically engaged, even though they might not be old enough to vote yet? Oh, I know I've got things to say, but I will hand that over to Adrianne and Stephanie first. I think we might be muted.
Of course I am. Of course I am. I was just going to say, I'm going to flip it over to Stephanie to respond first, since I think this is more in her realm.
Sure. I think one thing you can do in the meantime is kind of continue to just educate yourself. So continue to, follow accounts that I think share your viewpoints and accounts that don't share your viewpoints. You can understand how people feel that are on different sides of the aisle. And also look into things like, maybe there are petitions that you can sign or volunteer opportunities that you can take on, other things that you can do that aren't voting that are still a way for you to kind of use your power to get involved. And I'm curious what the She's the First team has to say about this too. So I'm excited to hear all your tips that you have.
Sure. Yeah. I, in addition to my day job at She's the First, I do a lot of campaign volunteering and a lot of political volunteering on the side. And we see a lot of young people who are 15, 16, 17. They're not old enough. But first of all, if you're not old enough to vote yet, you can still get your friends registered to vote. They might be old enough. And that is a really, we make it seem like it's hard, but it's very simple to register to vote. You can volunteer to be a poll worker, which is going to be especially important this election year in the United States, because many poll workers are of retirement age, they're older, they're more vulnerable to catching COVID-19. And so they are opting to stay home. And really having a strong democracy means we need everybody to have the opportunity to vote, which means we need people to work the polls. And you do not have to be of voting age to volunteer to do that. Also, getting involved with your community board, with your city council, keeping up with what is happening locally. There are a lot of ways that you can make your voice heard, either through attending meetings, through just even keeping up with the emails they send out about what they're doing and responding and letting them know how you feel about upcoming legislation. There are lots of ways to share your opinion with elected representatives without just voting for them. And one of the things we did earlier this week, the calls to repeal the tampon tax in Maine, Vermont, and Michigan, is a great example of that. That is something that could really make a difference politically that doesn't involve voting at all.
Yeah, I was gonna chime in and say that, when you look at your everyday life, so much, if not everything that is around us is controlled by some sort of government policy. So whether or not you choose to engage with politics is engaging with you in every little moment in your life. And if you don't like something, say something. So I'm just throwing this out there, if your bus stop isn't coming as often, or if you don't like your school lunches, or you don't like that there isn't a recycling canister near you or a compost, our advice usually is take a look at the candidates within your community who are advocating for things like that and volunteer with them. Put your name out there. Taking that first step always comes from a place of discomfort, but it will always make you stronger at the end of it. So volunteering is always a great way to go, and supporting someone who is advocating for those issues that you believe in is a great first step.
And I have to say, She's the First is doing more and more advocacy work as we are really starting to push on some policies like our campaign last year, She's a Girl First, which was all about the pregnancy bans happening in a few different countries where students weren't allowed to return to school if they happened to get pregnant while out of school. So there are lots of ways. There's petitions, there's social media campaigns. That is all political engagement, and She's the First is doing more and more of that. So keep an eye on what we're up to. Okay, do we have another question? Yes. What do you think are the most important leadership traits we should strive for? Who wants to go first?
To start off, I would say having a listening ear. And I think, too often we feel the pressure of having to say something, whatever it is, when you're in the moment. But take a moment to take a step back, look around the room, see where the lack of representation is, and lean into those marginalized voices to have a more holistic understanding of the problem ahead of you. That's one leadership trait that really kind of sticks out to me. With listening comes empathy and understanding, and I think that is what we're all kind of striving to have, especially in this moment in time. So, what about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, that's a great one. I think another thing I would add is being really action oriented. I think it's really easy to kind of do a lot of, talking or posting on social media or sharing things to your Instagram story. But at the end of the day, I think real progress comes from achieving results. And so I think whether it's volunteering, whether it's in, in government, whether it's in business, whether it's in something you're doing at school, it's really important to kind of make sure that you're actually having actionable steps and that you're having goals and that you're tracking your results. Because you want to make sure that all of the time that you're putting into something is really kind of going to something measurable and something that's going to be effective. So I think it's really important to kind of think about, okay, what is something tangible and specific and realistic that you can work towards, and create a timeline for achieving that.
Definitely. I would add, based on what Olivia said in the intro, authenticity, I think, is really important, that there is not one mold of what a leader should be, what leadership should look like, one checklist of traits we all need to have, but bringing your real lived experience and bringing your whole self to whatever sort of leadership role you find yourself in, and leading. It sounds corny to say leading from the heart, but truly leading from what is in your heart and what really makes you you, because your power is that you are the only person who is you. So bringing that full experience to the table. I think we have time for one more question, and we got one that says, what is the best way to encourage friends who might be strong candidates, who you see a lot of leadership potential in, who maybe don't see it in themselves or might be nervous to run for office of some sort?
Yeah, and I think so many women are in that position. So that's a great question. So most immediately, I would say encourage them to take part in this event we're putting on, because this event really is all about kind of tapping into that feeling that so many women have So again, it's hercampus.com/running start to learn more and to apply. But even for people that aren't able to attend that event, we're going to be hosting a ton of content on her campus all about these themes and these topics to really kind of help women engage with this kind of content, at their own pace, wherever they may be, whenever that may be. And then the Surge documentary too, I think is something that's so inspiring. It shows real women who didn't necessarily have a background in politics, but said, hey, I want to see a change in my district, in my area, and let me just take a stab at it. Let me go for it and do it. So I think seeing examples of other women who have done that can show you that it's something that's really possible for yourself. And for us, we're kind of trying to tackle exactly that problem, exactly that question you asked. And to us, we said, let's host, something truly hands-on and interactive they can take part in. For people that aren't ready for that, maybe we're going to have content they can engage with. And also let's just tune into really watching the stories of some inspiring women who have done that themselves through the documentary.
Yeah, I think I would just add to that, just to start the conversation by telling your friend that you think she would make a wonderful elected official. And I think it's about doing a little bit of research on your end, if it's possible, to share, what office you think she'd be excellent at holding and what are the reasons why. And you might get hit with like 10,000 reasons why not. But research kind of shows that women win at the same rate as men, but they're not encouraged at the same rate. And so being able to come ready to kind of thoughtfully challenge the kind of questions that they might have, whether it is about, finances or time or whatever it may be, all of those questions can kind of be answered. But what they most need is having a support system. So just simply telling her why you thought of her, I think is an excellent way to start.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for joining us today. This has been such a fun conversation for me, and I'm really excited to be working with you and taking action for leadership and representation. So thank you both for being here today.
Amazing.
Oh, such a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. To wrap us up, I'm going to encourage you to keep these conversations going in your action groups. Get on WhatsApp, talk with your peers. If there's somebody in your group who really seems like a strong leader, tell them to run for something. As you're taking action today, whether that is starting a talking circle or signing up for the Running Start training or catching up on actions from earlier this week, you can still do the menstrual health equity and climate justice actions over the weekend. But as you are taking actions, I'm just going to remind you to please fill out your survey telling us what you're up to. We're tracking all of the actions that we take together this week and coming up with a really exciting way to present our collective impact. So those surveys really help us out. And I'm sure your action group leaders will be reminding you of the link later today. I can't believe it's almost over, but we only have one more day left in our first ever week of action. So tomorrow's theme is Girls Can't Wait. We are talking about everything we've learned so far and how to turn it into sustainable action. And we're also going to be talking about why right now is the moment to act to protect girls' rights and girls' education. Since April, She's the First has been sounding the alarm about the effect of this pandemic, that this pandemic could have on girls around the world. So tomorrow we're going to give you an update on our COVID response fund and share how you can be part of the solution for the girls who are most at risk. You don't want to miss it. So we will see you here, same time, same place. It's youtube.com/She's the First, and we will be here at 12 p.m. Eastern for Girls Can't Wait. See you tomorrow.